Hello and welcome to the Vermont State Ethics Commission's online training for all Vermont state employees, board and commission members, and others acting on behalf of the state. This training will satisfy the minimum training requirements for public servants under the Vermont Code of Ethics. It should take about 30 to 45 minutes to complete. Once you have completed this training, you will have satisfied your statutory ethics training requirement. Disclaimer: please note that if you are employed by any branch of state government, there may be additional policies that are applicable to you which may be more restrictive than what is outlined in the Code of Ethics. If you have any questions regarding what is applicable to you, please reach out to your HR representative. If you do not work for a branch of state government and have questions, please reach out to the State Ethics Commission. As of 2022, ethics training is required of all public servants in Vermont. Those who are new to state service must receive ethics training within 120 days of starting service, and after that must receive training at least once every 3 years. If you are currently a public servant, you are required to take ethics training in 2022 and then at least once every 3 years after that. Vermont thanks you for your service and thank you for continuing to ensure that our citizens continue to receive excellent and ethical public service from their government. Over 10,000 Vermonters work diligently every day to make sure that government functions are tended to and that citizens receive the services and attention that they need. The Vermont Constitution recognizes that government works on behalf of and for the benefit of Vermont citizens. For this reason, they are referred to as public servants both in the ethics statutes and in this training. This training is for you, the public servant, to help you navigate through Vermont's new Code of Ethics. This training begins with an overview of the Code of Ethics and the role of the Vermont State Ethics Commission. The module will then discuss each of the specific rules that are set forth in the Code of Ethics. These include rules relating to conflicts of interest, use of state position or resources, gifts, and outside employment. Throughout the presentation, you will be presented with quizzes about the training materials. These quizzes will include hypothetical scenarios that may be faced by public servants in Vermont. You should answer these questions to the best of your abilities. In 2018, Vermont established the Independent State Ethics Commission to conduct ethics training and to provide oversight and advice related to the state ethics laws. The Ethics Commission also receives complaints regarding alleged ethics violations. These complaints are reviewed by the Commission, and if the allegations fall within the Code of Ethics, the complaints are referred to the appropriate agency for investigation. The Commission is guided and led by 5 commissioners who are appointed by state officials and good government organizations. The Commission employs a small staff to execute the day-to-day functions of the office. In the spring of 2022, Governor Scott signed S-171, enacting Vermont's first state Code of Ethics. The code represents a baseline for ethical behavior for Vermont public servants. Your agency may have stricter rules that apply to you and others at your agency, but the code is for all agencies to follow. Who does the code apply to? All public servants. For purposes of the Code of Ethics, public servant includes all individuals elected or appointed to serve as officers of the state, all individuals elected or appointed to serve as members of the General Assembly, all state employees, all individuals appointed to serve on state boards and commissions, and individuals who in any other way are authorized to act or speak on behalf of the state. Generally speaking, if you are working or volunteering on behalf of the state, you are likely to be a public servant who is subject to the new Code of Ethics. If you have any questions about the code's applicability to you, you can reach out to the State Ethics Commission to ask. The Code of Ethics provides detailed instructions about the ethical conduct expected of public servants. The provisions address conflicts of interest and what to do when confronted with one. The code provides direction with respect to when and if it is appropriate to accept a gift. There are provisions that explain the limitations on a public servant's use of state position, authority, and resources. The code also limits the type of outside employment the public servant may have if that outside employment is in conflict with the public servant's state role. There are also several general provisions as well as a few limitations on what public servants may do after they leave state service. The code is new but not extremely complex. Nevertheless, you probably will have questions about how the new provisions apply to your personal circumstances. For this reason, the most valuable advice for you is this: when in doubt, ask. The Vermont State Ethics Commission provides informal and formal advice to all public servants who are trying to get things right. Your inquiry is confidential and you can contact the Commission by telephone or email. This is a great resource for public servants. When in doubt, ask. Conflicts of interest arise every day. Some are difficult to spot. Some are difficult to fix. The Code of Ethics provides instruction on what constitutes a conflict, as well as what to do if you are confronted with one. During the course of public service, conflicts of interest may arise when your duty to the state is in conflict with a personal interest of yours. If such a conflict of interest arises, you may not take official action on the state matter or influence the action on the matter. Suppose, for example, your agency is reviewing applications for a state grant and you are a member of the decision-making committee. If you're also an applicant for the grant, it would be a conflict of interest for you to serve on the decision committee because the decision would affect your personal interest. Your personal interests are not limited to just your individual interests. Rather, a personal interest of yours includes any interest of a business associate of yours. It also includes the interests of anyone in your immediate family or members of your household. For purposes of the Code of Ethics, your immediate family includes your spouse, domestic partner or civil union partner, child or foster child, sibling, parent, or such relations by marriage or by civil union or domestic partnership, or an individual claimed as a dependent for federal income tax purposes. So if any of those people have an interest in an official decision or action you are called on to make as a public servant, you personally have a conflict of interest, even though you might not receive the benefit yourself. If your personal interest is no greater than anybody else's who may be generally affected, the Code does not regard this as a conflict of interest. For example, imagine you are a state legislator who is asked to vote on a bill that would increase state taxes on the sale of gasoline. In addition to being a legislator, you are also someone who purchases gasoline. And like all other purchasers of gasoline, you would prefer to not pay a greater price for that gasoline. Is this a conflict? Because your personal interest in low gasoline prices is no different than anyone else who purchases gasoline, your involvement in considering a higher gas tax is not a conflict of interest. The Code of Ethics instructs public servants to not only avoid conflicts of interest, but to avoid even the appearance of a conflict. Put yourself into the shoes of an average member of the public. How would your participation in the matter appear to that person? If a reasonable, impartial person is suspicious that you have a conflict, think twice about your participation. As always, if you have any doubts, call the Ethics Commission for advice. With limited exception, any time you're confronted with a conflict of interest during the course of your service to the state, you must recuse yourself from the matter or decision. Recusing means to step aside and have someone else make the decision or participate in the matter. After you recuse, you cannot involve yourself at any phase of the decision-making process or take any further action on the matter. You can't participate, make decisions, or even try to influence any of the decisions. Your recusal means you are done with the matter altogether. How you recuse yourself may be affected by what agency or state body you are in. For the vast majority of public servants, the proper way to recuse is usually to inform your supervisor of your conflict of interest and have your supervisor get someone else to handle the matter. If your position does not have a supervisor, such as if you are a member of a commission or an elected official, the recusal can be made in some other public or recorded manner, such as putting the recusal on the record at a public meeting when the matter first comes up for discussion, action, or vote. Disclosing the existence of the conflict is what is most important. Because you are recusing and not taking any part in the matter, the details of the nature of the conflict are less important to disclose. Unless your agency rules require more details about the nature of the conflict, it should be enough just to say, I have a conflict of interest that prevents me from participating in this. For a few specific public servants, the Code has special provisions with respect to recusal. Legislators must follow the internal rules for their legislative bodies on the definition of conflict of interest and whether to recuse themselves. Judicial officers in the judicial branch must ensure that their recusal is consistent with the Vermont Code of Judicial Conduct. Vermont licensed attorneys who are public servants may follow the recusal process in rules of professional conduct when a conflict of interest violations both the rules of professional conduct and the state code of ethics. On rare occasion, you might find yourself faced with a conflict of interest, but nevertheless believe that you can act impartially. If there is good cause for you to take action irrespective of the conflict, you may be able to proceed. But before you participate or make a decision in the matter, you need to disclose the conflict in writing with some detail. The writing should be filed according to the specific policies of your agency or public body, but at a minimum must include a description of the matter that is at issue, the nature of your conflict, why you believe there is good cause that permits you to act, and how you can do so in a manner that is fair and in the public's interest. The written disclosure must include enough detail that it can be fully understood by a member of the public. So what is good cause? Good cause can include situations where the conflict is de minimis in nature. For example, let's say a public servant in the Agency of Transportation is in charge of approving highways. The public servant is asked to approve a plan to widen a highway that the public servant knows is used by the public servant's spouse to travel to work. A widened highway will allow the spouse to get to work slightly quicker. Although the matter might technically be regarded as a conflict, the benefit is so small that the public servant should be able to disclose the interest and continue working on the approval. If a conflict is speculative, intangible, or amorphous, this may also constitute good cause. Imagine that the AOT employee from the last example is asked to approve a new access road to a state park that is a mile from the public servant's home. The public servant knows that the project will include increased drainage that may help surrounding neighborhoods avoid flooding if a hurricane were to hit. This is likely to be seen as a speculative benefit. For example, how often does a hurricane hit? The public servant can disclose the conflict and continue working on the approval. Good cause may also exist if there is no other public servant who can legally or practically take action or make the decision. For example, a few laws dictate that a particular public servant is the only official with legal authority over the matter. If such a person is called upon to make a decision that affects the public servant's interest, that public servant has no choice but to disclose the conflict and proceed. Let's check our knowledge so far. Here's the question. Jamie, a state inspector, is assigned to inspect a store's maple products. Jamie's spouse, Jules, is a part owner of the store. What must Jamie do in this situation? 1. Go ahead and inspect the store. Jamie is an honest person. 2. Inspect the store, but tell the store that Jules is Jamie's spouse. 3. Write up an inspection report without inspecting the store. 4. Recuse and get someone else to inspect this particular store. Please take some time to think about what the correct answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. Jamie has a conflict of interest because Jamie's spouse, Jules, is a part owner of the store that Jamie is assigned to inspect. Therefore, the Code of Ethics prohibits Jamie from taking official action affecting the store or its products, even if Jamie believes the inspection can be conducted without any bias or favoritism. Jamie must recuse from this inspection, and someone else must inspect the maple products at the store. The code contains multiple provisions that address the issue of gifts for public servants. With some limited exceptions, which we will discuss soon, the Code of Ethics prohibits public servants from soliciting or accepting any gifts in their official capacities. So what is a gift? Under the code, a gift is anything of value, tangible or intangible, that is given for less than adequate consideration. So unless you are paying for it, anything of value you receive in your official capacity is a gift. For examples, tickets to a play or concert, a gift basket filled with wine and cheese, airfare or hotel accommodations, a gift certificate to a local restaurant, a discount on the purchase of an automobile. If you solicit or receive any of the above because of your official duties, you may be in violation of the Code of Ethics, and these are just examples. There are exceptions to the gift restrictions. In some situations, public servants may be allowed to accept gifts. De minimis gifts. If a gift is worth $50 or less, the gift can be accepted by a public servant, provided that the total gifts received from that same source is valued at $150 or less per calendar year. So, for example, a public servant may receive a bouquet of flowers worth $49 from a person. If the same person several months later offers a gift certificate to a restaurant worth $49, the public servant may also receive this. And if several months later the same person offers the public servant a food basket worth $49, the public servant may still accept this third gift from the person. However, if the public servant has accepted all three of these gifts within a year, the public servant cannot accept any gift that year from the same person that is valued at over $3. Gifts received in a private capacity. There are certain gifts that a public servant may receive in a private capacity that have nothing to do with official duties. For example, a public servant may receive a gift that is clearly motivated by a personal relationship rather than because of the public servant's state position. For example, a gift from a family member or close personal friend. A gift from a private employer, provided such benefits are customarily and ordinarily provided to other private employees in similar situations. An inheritance. A loan, provided that the loan is commercially reasonable and not more favorable than loans that are made in the ordinary course of business. Rebates, discounts, or promotions can be accepted by a public servant, provided that the rebate, discount, or promotion is equally available to the general public or a definable subset of the general public. Food or beverage. Sometimes a public servant is offered food or beverage in the course of the public servant's duties. The public servant can accept the food and or beverage under the following circumstances. The food or beverage is incidental to the performance of a legitimate state function. For example, imagine if a public servant is engaged in a live negotiation with a potential state partner at the state partner's place of business. At lunchtime, in order to be able to work through the lunch hour, the potential state partner offers to order sandwiches instead of taking a break for lunch. Because the food is incidental to the public servant's function, this is acceptable. The food or beverage is provided at a charitable, cultural, political, or civic event at which the public servant participates in the public servant's capacity. For example, if a legislator is asked to give a speech at a Labor Day celebration in the legislator's home district, the legislator can accept the food and or beverage that is served at the event. The food and/or beverage is consumed on an occasion where the person paying for the food beverage is in attendance, provided that the aggregate value of food beverages received from the payer in a calendar year does not exceed $100. Admission fees and tickets. A public servant may accept attendance to a widely attended, charitable, cultural, political, or civic event at which the public servant participates in an official capacity. The tickets or admission must be provided by the sponsoring entity and can include any food, beverage, or entertainment provided to all attendees of the event. Tickets and admission fees can't be accepted from third parties if the giver is not the person or entity that is holding the event. The gift is not permitted. Gifts to the state. If a gift is offered to the state, you may be allowed to accept it on behalf of the state under certain conditions. For example, if a state vendor offers your agency free training and maintenance on the printers that the vendor just installed, this gift is really for the state, not you personally. You can accept it. If, however, the vendor offers you an expensive office chair for your exclusive use in your state position, this is not a gift to the state. If the gift is for your exclusive benefit, it is impermissible even if you're using it while working for the state. You could accept a gift if it is used for a legitimate state function, such as a promotional good relevant to your agency's mission that you accept and display for the public. You can also accept printed or recorded informational or educational material that is germane to state action or functions. For example, an ESL coordinator might accept a book that is relevant to the teaching of ESL students. Along the same lines, a public servant may accept attendance to a training or similar event if it is in the interest of the public servant's agency or department. Ceremonial awards. On occasion, a public servant may be offered a ceremonial award, such as a plaque, in the course of official duties. The public servant may accept the ceremonial award provided that the value of the award is less than $100. Gifts received from another public servant. A public servant may accept a gift for a holiday or occasion of special significance, such as a wedding or birthday, from another public servant unless the two are in a supervisor-supervisee relationship. If the two public servants are in a supervisor-supervisee relationship, a gift can be accepted for a holiday or special occasion, provided that the gift is valued at less than $100 and the total value of gifts given does not exceed $200 in a calendar year. The rules for supervisor-supervisee relationships are more strict. This protects against a public servant taking advantage of a supervisor-supervisee relationship, even if unintentionally. Public servants are also allowed to receive gifts that are otherwise expressly permitted by state law. Let's check our knowledge again. Here's the question. Sam is an appointed member of the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport. Because of this position, Sam is given tickets by a state contractor to a Boston Red Sox game. Can Sam accept the tickets? 1. Yes, but only if the tickets are completely free to Sam. 2. Yes, but only if Sam doesn't receive any food or beverage at the game. 3. Yes, but Sam may only accept one ticket. 4. No, unless Sam pays for the tickets. Please take some time to think through this and think about what the correct answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. The free tickets have value and are therefore a gift. So the only question is whether the tickets fall within an exception to the gift rules. The tickets are not offered for Sam to participate in an official capacity, so the exception for admission tickets does not apply. The gift does not benefit the state, and the gift is not motivated by personal friendship. No gift exception applies. Sam must either refuse the tickets or pay full value for them. Let's do another knowledge check on gifts. Pat, a supervisor in the Office of State Treasurer, is getting married. The 5 state employees that Pat supervises want to congratulate Pat with a surprise wedding gift. They decide to pool their money and buy Pat a pair of skis. Can the supervisees pool their money to buy the skis? 1. Yes, but only if the supervisees go skiing with Pat. 2. Yes, but only if the supervisees are also personal friends with Pat. 3. Yes, but only if each of the supervisees contributes less than $100. 4. No, the supervisees are not allowed to give gifts to a supervisor. Please take some time to think through this question and what the correct answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. If they each give less than $100, the supervisees can pool their money to give Pat a wedding gift. Pat can accept the skis for this special occasion. Pat and the supervisees will have to make sure that the aggregate value of gifts do not exceed $200 per employee over the course of the calendar year. The code provides several provisions regarding the use of a state position, state authority, state information, and state resources. A public servant cannot use a position with the state to gain an advantage. For example, what if a department head wanted tickets to a play or reservations at a sought-after local restaurant so that the department head and their spouse could have a luxurious night out in the town? It would be improper for the department head to use the authority of the state position to gain such a privilege. Here are some other examples. Asking for special treatment from law enforcement. Leveraging future state action in exchange for a benefit. Using elected official status to get special privilege. All of these scenarios are problematic. Ask yourself, if I were not a public servant or have the authority of my official position, would I receive this benefit? Even if you do not initiate a request for a benefit or advantage, it is still improper if the benefit is being offered because of your state position or authority. Similarly, a public servant cannot use any of the state's resources for personal benefit. Many state employees use or have access to state tools, equipment, or machinery for their state jobs. Taking state property home for your personal use is a misuse of state resources. Imagine if a state employee decided to use a state-owned pickup truck to transport wood for the winter over to the employee's house, or borrow a state lawnmower for the weekend. The Code of Ethics prohibits the employee from using these resources of the state for personal use. Or imagine that a department head forgot to pick up laundry from a local laundromat. it would be impermissible for the department head to send a state employee to the laundromat for this personal errand. Finally, the Code of Ethics prohibits public servants from using any non-public or confidential information to gain an advantage. Suppose that a company bids for a state contract with the Agency of Transportation. Much of the decision process for deciding the bid is not public. Therefore, it would be improper for an employee of the agency to disclose this non-public information to the company in exchange for something of value. It's time for another knowledge check. Adrian works in the press office for the Attorney General. Adrian is asked to draft an announcement that the Attorney General plans to file suit against a major company. The announcement is to be made the next day but kept secret until then. Adrian's spouse owns stock in the major company. Can Adrian inform the spouse of the impending announcement? 1. Yes, but only if Adrian tells other people who own stock in the company. 2. No. 3. Yes, but only if Adrian does not directly own any stock in the company. 4. Yes, but only if Adrian's spouse promises not to tell others. Please take some time to think through this question and consider what the answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. In this situation, Adrian may not disclose the non-public information to anyone who may receive a private benefit, including Adrian's spouse. Many public servants have outside employment or business activities. There is no general prohibition under the Code of Ethics for this. However, if outside employment or business activities are in conflict with state duties, it may be in violation of the code. The Code of Ethics prohibits public servants from seeking or engaging in any outside employment that is inconsistent or incompatible with the public servant's duties to the state. For example, say a public servant is an enforcement officer in the Department of Environmental Conservation. The public servant's duties include the investigation of alleged polluters in the state. If that public servant wanted to take a position with a law firm that represents polluters in front of the department, the Code of Ethics would likely prohibit the public servant from doing so because the private duties would be inconsistent and/or incompatible with the public servant's duties to the state. Even if the public servant disclosed all of the many conflicts, the outside position would force the public servant to recuse from most of the job as an enforcement officer. Let's do a knowledge check on outside employment. Taylor is an egg inspector in the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Taylor's job includes enforcing the state's egg packaging regulations. Taylor is offered a job as an expert witness on behalf of a state egg producer that is on trial for multiple violations of the state's egg packaging regulations. The egg producer wants Taylor to testify that the regulations are illegal and unenforceable. Can Taylor accept the job? 1. Probably not. 2. Yes, but only if Taylor leaves state employment. 3. Yes, but only if Taylor informs an immediate supervisor. 4. Yes, but only on a temporary basis. Please go through the question and think what the best answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. Taylor may not accept the job as it is being offered. Taylor may be able to accept a different job that is not inconsistent or incompatible. even a different job with the egg producer, but Taylor would be well advised to seek advice from the Ethics Commission before doing so. Several general provisions of the Code of Ethics attempt to ensure that public servants are always acting within the best interest of the state and are doing so in a fair, equal, and equitable manner. As public servants, we are called upon to serve on behalf of the public at large. As such, members of the public should be treated equally by each public servant. The Code of Ethics affirms this by prohibiting public servants from giving preferential treatment to any member of the public because of the person's wealth, status, position, or relationship to the public servant, except when required or authorized by law. Equally, a public servant cannot show prejudice to any member of the public. The Code of Ethics prohibits public servants from making commitments on behalf of the state without having the authority to do so. If your position does not give you the authority to commit on behalf of the state or to make a promise of state action, don't do it. You may be violating the Code of Ethics and possibly other laws. For example, if you are a member of a board considering candidates for a state contract and the full vote of the board is required to award the contract, you cannot individually award the contract to your preferred contractor or promise the contractor that its bid will be accepted by the board. The Code of Ethics also contains a requirement that public servants follow all other applicable laws and rules. The federal and state anti-discrimination and equal opportunity laws are specifically referenced. In addition to generally applicable laws and regulations, your particular agency or public body may have rules, policies, and protocols that are specific to your position or agency. It's time to check our knowledge again. Lynn is a clerk at a state courthouse responsible for accepting and recording court filings. Lynn gets a call from a neighbor who's also a lawyer. The neighbor tells Lynn that a mistake was made and the neighbor will be unable to file a document before the deadline at the close of business today. The neighbor asks, if I bring the document in tomorrow, could you do me a favor and stamp it as if it were received today? What should Lynn do? 1. Agree to the favor request. 2. Politely decline the favor request. 3. Decline the request, but only because the neighbor is not related. 4. Decline the request, but offer to keep the clerk's office open after business hours in order to allow the neighbor to file today. Please think through the question and what the answer might be, and then move to the next slide to find out the answer. In this particular situation, to grant the requested favor would be to give the neighbor preferential treatment. It does not matter what their relationship is. Keeping the office open after business hours would also be giving preferential treatment. Lynn should politely decline the neighbor's request. Most of the provisions of the Code of Ethics apply to your conduct while you are a public servant. However, there are a few prohibitions that continue to apply after you leave state service. Leaving state service? Depending on who you are, there may be specific rules that apply to you after you leave. Executive branch officers and legislators cannot become lobbyists for a year after leaving state service. an executive officer of the state may not appear before the General Assembly or any other state body to advocate on a particular matter that the officer was involved with or a matter that was under the officer's jurisdiction while with the state. For purposes of the Code of Ethics, an executive officer means the governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, secretary of state, auditor of accounts, or attorney general, or any agency secretary or deputy, or a department commissioner or deputy commissioner. With limited exception, legislative branch employees cannot appear before the General Assembly for compensation for a year after leaving service. With these one-year cooling-off restrictions, there is an exception for those who leave state service but thereafter are working on a contract for or with the state. But all public servants, including legislators, executive officers, and legislative branch employees, are prohibited from knowingly trying to influence the specific matters they work on while engaged by the state. After leaving state service, a public servant may not communicate or appear before the state to advocate on a matter in which the public servant participated personally and substantially during state service if the state is a party or has a direct and substantial interest. For example, if an employee at the Department of Environmental Conservation drafts and works to enact regulations protecting a specific lake in the state, that person could not thereafter leave state service to take a job to challenge those exact same regulations. In short, you can't leave state service and tear down the work that you performed for the state. Let's check our knowledge on this. Here's the question. Until last year, Jerry was a tax auditor for the state. Jerry left state service and opened a tax practice assisting private clients who are being audited. Before leaving the state, Jerry worked on an audit of Company X, which was completed after Jerry left. Recently, the Company X audit was finished by the state. Company X now wants to challenge the audit findings and wants to hire Jerry to appear before the state. Can Jerry take the job? 1. Yes. Jerry is now in private practice and not bound by the ethics code. 2. Yes, because Jerry was not an executive officer or legislator. 3. Yes, because Jerry was gone before the audit was finalized. 4. No. Please think through the question and what the best answer might be, and move to the next slide to find out the answer. As a threshold matter, some provisions of the Ethics Code extend past your state employment, and on this one, Jerry is still bound. It does not matter whether Jerry is a lobbyist, legislator, or executive officer, and it does not matter that the audit was not final when Jerry left. All that matters is that Jerry worked substantially on this specific matter when with the state. Jerry must decline the engagement with Company X. Although it may seem obvious, if you can't ethically do it yourself, you can't get someone to do it for you. Under the code, if you're prohibited from engaging in certain conduct, it is also improper for you to direct someone else to engage in that same conduct. Even if the direction is not explicit, it is still prohibited. For example, if a public servant is barred from taking an action, like because of a conflict of interest, the public servant cannot delegate a matter to a subordinate that reports to the public servant. Because the subordinate reports to the conflicted public servant, there is a tacit incentive for the subordinate to act in a way that the subordinate believes the boss might want. Let's pause again for a knowledge check. Here's the question. Terry, a manager at the Agency of Education, is asked to select a contractor to repair machines at the agency. Terry's adult child runs a machine repair company and bids on the contract. What should Terry do? 1. Disclose the conflict and assign the decision to an employee under Terry's supervision. 2. Instruct the staff to select Terry's child for the contract but participate no further in the decision. 3. Disclose the conflict, recuse from the matter, and ask the immediate supervisor to reassign the matter to an employee not supervised by Terry. 4. Select Terry's child but disclose the conflict. Please think through what the answer to this question might be, and then go to the next slide to find out the answer. In this situation, Terry must disclose the conflict and recuse. Because the matter must still be addressed, Terry's best option is to ask Terry's supervisor to reassign the matter to someone who does not report to Terry. Because we are all public servants, we all have a duty to continue to strive for ethical behavior, not just our own behavior, but the behavior of our co-workers and fellow public servants. The Code of Ethics offers a number of ways that we can continue to ensure that Vermont government operates with the highest ethical standards. As stated before, the State Ethics Commission is here to help you make sure you are always on the right side of the ethics laws. Every public servant has access to the Commission to seek advice and ask questions about their own personal circumstances. Advice can be given in two different ways. The Commission staff is always available by phone, email, etc. to give informal guidance. This guidance is confidential and cannot be shared with the public. In addition, the Commission is available to provide formal written advisory opinions to public servants. These written advisory opinions generally relate to topics that are more universally applicable. The Commission can issue these advisory opinions upon request. The advisory opinions may be posted on the Commission's website, but do not identify the person who requested the opinion. On rare occasion, you may be confronted with a situation where you believe that a fellow public servant is not behaving ethically and may be in violation of ethics laws. If all else fails, you have a right to file a complaint with the Commission. The Commission cannot investigate the complaint, but the complaint can be referred on to the appropriate agency or department if it alleges a violation of the Code of Ethics. All complaints are kept confidential by the Commission. The Commission provides training and education to all public servants. Training is required for all public servants. People who are new to state service have 120 days to receive training. After that time, all public servants have to repeat the training within 3 years. This online training satisfies the training requirement. The Commission is also available to provide live trainings upon request of an agency, and periodically the Commission will release printed and online educational material that may be of help to public servants and agencies. We would like to remind you again that if you are employed by any branch of state government, there may be additional policies that are applicable to you which may be more restrictive than what is outlined in the Code of Ethics. If you have any questions regarding what is applicable to you, please reach out to your HR representative. If you do not work for a branch of state government and have questions, please reach out to the State Ethics Commission. This concludes your ethics training. You will be able to print out a certificate reflecting this completion. Your agency or public body will keep track of your compliance. Often, taking this training raises a number of questions that you may have about your own status and situation. For these questions, the best advice is always seek advice. Contact the Ethics Commission anytime you have questions about your ethical obligations as a public servant. Thank you for your time in taking this training.